Hi, and welcome to my channel. I'm so excited to have you here. My name is Kenzie. You might know me on TikTok as SQL Pal. So I am just starting a YouTube channel so I can share more in-depth SQL tips without being limited to 3 minutes. I also think I lose attention really fast on TikTok. So if you're interested in learning more SQL, I'll share very quick tips on TikTok, but I'm going to share more in-depth, more examples on my YouTube channel. So I'm excited you're here. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic I like to talk about, but I think scares a lot of people, and that's joins. And I'm not going to talk about like left joins, inner joins, right joins. I have a bunch of those on my TikTok channel if you want to see those. And I'll probably make an updated one for YouTube. But I want to specifically talk about joins and whether or not you should join. So I say to join or not to join should always be the question. So what I mean by that is what should you look out for when you're joining two tables, and what are some things you need to consider before making a join? So let's take a look at an example. Okay, so to get started on this topic, I'm going to use the example that I shared earlier this week on my TikTok channel. If you don't follow me, I'm at SQL period pal, and you can find that in my bio. But I am looking at this example that I brought up where I had these two tables, table A and table B. So I'm going to show you what's in table A. Table A has our store ID, a date, and then the amount of sales for that date. And then table B shows the store ID, the month, and then what the predicted or forecasted budget is for that month. So if what I shared on my TikTok is that if I was trying to find the store ID, the sum of the sales amount, and then the budget for that store, like for a month, this is the query I presented. So since table A and table B are both in the month of October, in the month of August, I'm not doing a date filter here. But so if I look at table A dot store ID, and then from table A, I sum the amount as the sales amount. And then from table B, I sum the budget as the budget from table A, interjoin on table B, on that store ID that we know is in both, and then grouping by that store ID. When I run this, you'll see that my sales amount looks generally okay, because when we looked at that table A, we saw that the daily sales were around $700 to $900 or $800 to $900. So seeing this, going back into that query I just ran, thank you. You can see, yeah, that makes sense for 2 days of the month, 15, 16, 1700. I don't know how I got those too. Okay, anyways. So then the next thing though is if you look at the budget over here, that budget is $49,000, which is really high if we're thinking about only $800 to $900 a day for store sales. For the budget for the month to be 49,696 is really high. And if we go back and look at that table B, we'll see that the budgets were only about 24 to 27,000 or 23 to 27,000. So what happened here? Let's take a look back at this. So when I join on this, we get the store IDs, which is right, and the sales amount, which is right, but the budget seems to be wrong. So to do an investigation, I usually just copy and paste my table out, because I don't want to get rid of the table I have, but instead of pulling specific columns, I'll just select all. So I'm going to run the exact same query, just selecting all, so we can diagnose what happened. Oh, sorry, I should take this group by out as well. So taking the group by out as well. So let's take a look at what's going on here. If I organize by store ID, we can see the store ID, that's coming through fine. We have the dates for each store ID, the amount spent for each store ID, which makes sense. And then when we get into our table B, we have the store ID again, the month, and then we notice that the budget is basically duplicated for every day of the month, since we only have 2 days. So what's happening here is you're joining on store ID, right? But in this table, the level of granularity here is the day for the date field. And in this table, the level of granularity is the month. So when you join on store ID, it's going to find all of the records in table A with this store ID and all of the records in table B. And since this record appears twice, it's going to join that one record one time for each appearance in that first table. And that's why you're getting the budget duplicated. So how would you make this work? It depends really. If you're intending to find for the entire month, you're gonna probably have to wait until the month ends to sum up by month. Or if you'd like to do it this way for the amount of days, like if you're looking for just how many days we have so far this month and the sales plus what the budget would be so far for this month, you'd have to find a table that has the allocated budget by date. So since these two tables are at two different levels of granularity, a simple query like this will not get you the results that you want. So I'm going to share another example. So let's get into that. All right, so let's set the stage here. We're going to say that you're a new analyst at the company and your boss has come to you and said, hey, for just the month of January, I'd like to get the count of customers and the sum of sales by the store, just so I can do some comparison between stores. So you're not familiar with a bunch of tables, but you do know about these two tables and you think that this will work in order to get all that you need. So let's start with our first table called district customer sales. So I'm going to run this so we can see what's in it. You can see I have my customer ID and which district they shopped in, as well as the date they shopped, and then the week of the year in which they shopped. Sometimes people like to see weeks, especially accounting. So I guess that's why that's in here. Then we have our product ID, which is going to be the ID of what was sold. So the product sold, how many the person bought. And then the price of the product. And then just to note, amount here is doing the quantity times the price. So 8 times 8 is $64 is how much they paid in total. So then we're going to take a look at our store sales monthly table. And this is going to show us for each store ID the month and year that we're looking at, and then the sum of sales for that month and year. And then what district that store falls in. Another interesting thing to note here is that we have these month-year sales, which if we look, it looks like the lower end is about 7,000 a month, where the higher end is closer to 11,000. So that's kind of the range we're looking at per store. So one thing that would be a very easy thing to note is that district ID happens to be in both of our district customer sales table and our store sales monthly table. So this is great. If we're thinking, we want to just join these two tables based on district ID, that's probably where a lot of our minds would go first. But let me show you what happens when we do that. All right, so let's take a look at the SQL that I've written that does just that. It joins our store sales monthly table, which I've aliased as SSM, and it interjoins our district customer sales table, DCS, on that district ID. So what I'm doing from our DCS table is I'm pulling the district ID and the count of customers. And then from our SSM table, I'm pulling the store ID and the sum of monthly sales as January sales. So I know, and you're just gonna have to trust me on this one, our store sales monthly or our district customer sales only has the month of January in it. It hasn't been updated for the month of February yet. So you're just gonna have to trust me on that. So the last thing I specify is the month year for my store sales monthly is January. And then I've grouped by my two columns here, my district ID and my store ID. Just a reminder, anytime you have aggregate functions like sum or count, you have to group by what else is in there. So I'm grouping by district and store ID. So let's run this and see what we get. So great. So I have my district ID, my store ID, my January sales, and my customer count. So there's a few things that should stand out to you first. So earlier when we were looking at that store sales monthly table, we noted that the average store sale was between $7,000 and $11,000. And this is showing 3.3 million. So that's way too high just to start. And then also we can notice that for each district or for each store in the same district, they have the same customer count. So that's kind of unbelievable that the customer, that there were 335 customers at both of the district or stores in District 2, but 339 at both of the stores in District 3. So the same number repeating for each store within a district is pretty suspicious. So let's investigate what happened here. So to do this, I am going to just make a copy of this query because I'd like to keep it. But I'm going to make a copy of this query, and then I'm going to make some adjustments to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out all these distinct columns and just select everything so we can see exactly what happened. And we can see all of the rows that were being pulled, so we can see kind of how things might have been grouped, how that worked, and especially what our join did. For that, I also can take out my group by. Since I don't have any aggregates, I don't need it. So I'm just going to select all from both of these tables still joined on that district ID, where the month year is still January. So let's run this. And you can see here we have the first 4 columns, or the 4 columns of the store sales monthly, and then we have the columns of the district customer sales. And you'll see that what's happening here is they're being joined on district, which is what we said. Now the problem is that this store sales monthly is at the store level, and this is at the customer level. And even though they have this district in common, they're not at the same level of granularity, and they don't have a common column at that granularity level between the two of them. So what do I mean by that? So our first table has things grouped at the store level, and our second has them grouped at the customer level. So even though we have this district ID that joins these two, we don't have that store ID in our customer sales table that we can use to tell where these transactions took place, which is what we would need in order to properly get the customer count. Because when we're counting by district, each customer is going to be counted once per store within that district. So just looking at this top example here, this customer 4605 was counted as being at store 25 and store 26, which is why we had those same 2 customer count numbers. And then towards the yearly monthly sales, they counted once, or the month year sales, they counted once for each store. So what happened is for each store, if we take a look at this, our other query again, we can see that for each store, the January sales, whatever the actual number of January sales was multiplied by this customer count. Because since we joined at the district, every customer that shopped, every customer in that district was counted once at each store. So that's why we got those super high numbers for sales, because it was multiplying for each customer, because that's at a lower level of granularity. Remember, customer ID is lower than store ID. So it's going to count them multiple times in that January sales column. And then for the customer count, it's going to count them once per store. Since we don't know the store in just the district, it's not going to make a distinction for us. So what we would need to make this work is some kind of table that contained our store ID, our customer ID, that showed where each transaction in our district customer sales took place. Without that table, we cannot count the number of customers per store, because we don't have that store ID, and the district is a great level of granularity higher than what we need. So without having some kind of combination between the two, where we have some kind of join at that level of granularity, we won't be able to run this query. All right, I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any other questions about granularity or whether or not you should join these 2 tables, let me know, and I'd be happy to work through some more examples. Remember, if you like this kind of stuff, like and subscribe. I've always wanted to say that, to my channel, so I can keep putting out good stuff for you.